Greetings, gentles and ladiesmen, ExoParadigmGamer here, and today I thought I'd do something a little different. I hope you guys enjoyed the review I just released Monday on Klonoa Moonlight Museum. And yes, the Klonoa Marathon will continue to go on as planned, and Lunatea's Veil will probably be the next review I release. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it. Like, I've got all the footage recorded. I've just got to write the script and record all the other bullshit, and, you know. It takes a long time to make a review, actually. A lot of people don't know that, especially content consumers, but yeah, that's a little besides the point. I included in one of the end cards for Klonoa, said that a "Is It Really That Bad?" quote-unquote episode of, was in the works for Star Fox Zero. It was actually before I played the game, and I'm just like, I figured that I had a hypothesis that the game was not going to be as bad as people make it out to be. So I was considering doing an episode on this, and as I'm at this point, I'm pretty sure that that's actually what's going to happen. I probably will indeed do a "Is It Really That Bad?" episode on Star Fox Zero. But I thought it would really augment the review itself to show off my first experience with the game. And to show how, you know, just my first impressions, how everything went for me on my first playthrough, just so that I have this uploaded, you know, as evidence that the game is perhaps better than people are making it out to be. Well, some people anyway. So I decided, you know, I'm gonna upload this footage of me on my first playthrough, but, you know, just uploading raw gameplay footage, you know, first of all, there's the fair use issue there, because, you know, not that companies really actually care about fair use, but, yeah, shots fired and all. But, I don't know, I thought that it would be a little more interesting and people would be more inclined to watch it if I commentated on it. So, what I decided to do was, do a post-commentary LP. So, what you are watching is my first ever experience with Star Fox Zero. I've never played this game before. I have not seen any video reviews. I have not watched any gameplay footage on YouTube. I have not played, I have not played any demos. I didn't play it at, like, one of those E3 things that, you know, like, people like my friend Brad got to see. I have not consulted any guides. All I did was just buy the game, pop it in the system, turn on the Elgato, and just let it rip. I didn't even record in multiple sessions. I recorded everything in one continuous 3-hour-long thing. So yeah, and I did that on purpose because like with stuff like Sonic Boom, I mean, like, I've certainly read reviews about this game. Like, I actually read the script. I proofread the script to my friend Haydox's review of this game. Just, you know, like, we give each other scripts and we give each other feedback on them and all that stuff. You might have noticed in my Door to Phantom Isle Remake or Rebreak episode, Haydox commented and asked why I didn't get rid of Shrek sighting at the beginning. And actually what he said in the Google Docs comment was, Shrek memes are cancer. The implication was that I should get rid of it, but I kept it just to spite him. It's true. But, yeah, because, you know, I think it would really augment my review of this game if people can see that, yeah, I played this game right out of the box and honestly really had very few issues with it. I thought, I guess if you want the Cliff Notes version, if you want just my 2 cents in a nutshell, I think Star Fox Zero is a fantastic game, and I don't know, it might just be my new favorite Star Fox game altogether. It's really fucking good. I love this game. I have not played the entire thing yet. What you're going to be seeing in this playthrough is just me going from the beginning of the game to the final boss. I didn't go for any of the alternate pathways or anything like that. I just wanted to, you know, play through the game on a first run-through just to show off what it was like for me. And then I was going to go back for medals and all that other shit later. So yeah. As you can see here, the game opens up with a with a training sequence, kind of like Star Fox 64. Essentially, Pepe gives you a bunch of instructions about how to fly the R-Wing, and it's... I don't know, do I want to get into the controls yet? Because it's something I probably should describe. That's one of the things I've noticed with reviews of this game in particular. I haven't read all of the reviews on the internet, and I've heard that the Jim Sterling review is pretty infamous. I don't even know who the fuck Jim Sterling is, but people keep talking about him in this game, and apparently he was very unapologetic in his criticism of this game, so... yeah. I don't know, but I read like a Polygon review and a Forbes article, and basically like the gist of it was the controls don't work. You can get used to them, but even once you do get used to them, they don't work as well as the old control scheme, and it makes you wonder why they couldn't have made them optional or just kept the old control scheme. And I even read this one Forbes article that basically said that Star Fox Zero is basically, in a nutshell, why the Wii U was a flawed concept to begin with, and why they should never have made the gamepad and all that other sort of shit. And, naturally, it got me curious about this game, because, like, I've been following it since it's announced. I should probably disclose that I am indeed a pretty big Star Fox fan. I love this franchise. There are some games I like more than others. You may know that I'm not a huge fan of a certain adventure game called Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet for the Nintendo GameCube. Did a full Let's Play of that game with my brother Eric over the summer, and that got released over the past few months. I should probably talk about this target view thing. It took me a while to get a handle on that. So I want to talk about the controls a little later. Just want to, you know, I mean, like, basically what we're doing here is it took me a little while to figure it out, but you're supposed to go find all of your pals, and then, like, you'll fly through a couple rings, and then they'll join you, and then this training sequence ends. But, so, like, I read that article from Forbes, and it's just like, wow, is this game really that bad? And I mean, like, the thing is that sometimes motion controls do suck. Sometimes they are not programmed very well, and it's just like there's no reason for them to be there. And I understand that. But what I've found is that, like, especially with... like, Skyward Sword is a good example. I did a huge, gigantic hour-and-a-half long review of that game. I think it was about that long. It was long, is the point. I did a big review of Skyward Sword. And one of the things I really liked about that game is, I mean, like, I wasn't a huge fan of the story, and I wasn't a huge fan of the overworld. I liked the game, but, you know, it was like... I do think Twilight Princess had a better overworld than that game. I do think it had better dungeons. There are a lot of things that I feel like Skyward Sword dropped the ball on. But the one thing that I really love the game for is the motion controls. I love the sword play in that game. It feels... the combat in that game is so much more fun than any of the previous Zelda games. Period. It is so much fun, because, like, in the other games, the sword's mapped to the B button, you just mash it, and you kill things, and they die, and it's really... there's really not much to it, but that... I mean, like, honestly, for those games, that's all you really needed at the end of the day. But with Skyward Sword, also, one thing I should mention as the game's starting to get on here is that, the voice acting does not play through the TV. It does not play through the HDMI. It plays through the, this is the E3 trailer, by the way. It's in the game for some reason. But the game audio, like, the HDMI does not carry the voice acting in this game. At least not... I haven't, like, looked around in the settings yet. Maybe there's a way to get it, but from my experience, it all plays through the Wii U gamepad. So it's just... so, like, you're holding the gamepad and then speakers on the gamepad. That's where all the voice acting is coming through. So what that means for this playthrough is that you will not be hearing any of the voice acting. I'm sure there's a way I could figure out to record it for, like, a Game Mavericks LP or something, but I did not anticipate that was going to be the case when I recorded this. And it was just like, it'll make it easier to hear my commentary anyway, so... If you want my 2 cents on the voice acting, it's heavily modeled after Star Fox 64, but I think it's like they even got either the same voice actors or voice actors that happen to sound a lot like the original ones from 64, as opposed to like the Star Fox Assault voice actors, who are much better in my opinion, but that's beside the point. I guess this voice acting recorded through the HDMI, but yeah, this would play before the main game, but you can watch it from the main menu, I guess. But yeah, it's the voice acting, it's I know it's modeled after 64, and as you guys may have noticed from my previous reviews, I'm not a huge fan of the voice acting in that game. It's better than Star Fox Adventures, but that's not saying much. But it's... I'm just gonna turn down the volume so that I can hear myself a little better, but it's better than 64, I think, even though it's modeled after it. I mean, it's not gonna win any awards from me, but there was no point, and there are a couple of lines which are just ironically funny, you know? Like, I'll be noting some of them later. But, there was no point where I was just like, ooh, cringe, that's so badly delivered, or, you know. It feels like it's trying to be silly, and it's trying to be like 64, but I can still sense an improvement over 64, you know? It doesn't have that same effect of, like I believe for Star Fox 64, and it certainly sounds like it from the way the lines are delivered, is they basically got some people from the localization department to basically they just stuck them in a conference room, threw a microphone in front of them, and said, here, read these lines. And that's how we got, do a barrel roll, and all that shit. But with this game, it feels like there's a little more professionalism behind the voice acting. Again, it's not good, and it's not like good, but it is acceptable, I think. Especially since clearly they were trying to go back to basics with this game and with the voice acting, so I do think Assault maybe had better acting, even if sometimes there were some pretty bad lines. But yeah, that's what I think of the voice acting. If you care, it's fine, it works. It could have been better, but you know, I guess the way I feel about, I don't know, the voice acting's fine. That's all I've really got to say about that. Could be better, but it could be a hell of a lot worse. It beats 64 by miles. Well, maybe not by miles, but I don't know, it feels better than 64. And that's, I don't know, better that than nothing, I guess. So, essentially, we're basically seeing the backstory here. It's essentially the same as Star Fox 64's intro, except Fox narrates it instead of that guy with a voice that sounds like this. But, you know, basically, Andross is an evil scientist, douchebag, fucker, Ed, and he worked for General Pepper, and he got a little hot for, yeah, it plays again, and I skipped it, but he got a little big for his britches, and went against the General's orders, and so the General banished him to Venom, and years later he noticed strange activity coming from Venom, and essentially banished, or no, he sent the old Star Fox team, which was led by Fox McCloud's father, James McCloud. Peppy, James, and Pigma were sent to investigate. Turns out that Pigma was working for Andross. They got betrayed. James sacrificed himself so Peppy could escape and live to see another day and tell Fox what happened to his dad. And 5 years later, the Lylat Wars have begun in earnest. Andross has launched a full-scale attack against the capital of Corneria. And, you know, after 5 years of fighting, the General's forces are getting tuckered out. So the General has commissioned the help of 4 ace pilots, known as Star Fox, the Star Fox team. As you can see here, that the Great Fox is their mothership, and then they've got several R-Wings ships, very similar to the to their appearance in 64. And essentially, these pilots have been commissioned on what is essentially a suicide mission to infiltrate Venom and destroy Andross and end the war in one fell swoop. And you know, like, if we're talking about story here, it's very much like the original game on SNES. which Star Fox 64 basically, you know, copied for its story. Like, basically how it was, the SNES game, which is one of my personal favorite Star Fox games, honestly, it's... I don't know, I think Zero might be my new favorite. I've got to do, like, some of the side stuff and, like, maybe give it another few playthroughs before I come to that conclusion for sure. But based on what I've played in this first playthrough, this game is awesome, and I think it's my new favorite Star Fox game. Just maybe. But before I played this game, my favorite was the original on SNES. I mean, it's not a perfect game, and it has aged, but there's just a simple charm to it that I can't really describe. It's a very subjective thing. I'm sure that many people will play it and just not get why I like that game more than 64, but one thing I really liked about it, though, was how it handled difficulty. Not only was I mean, it has that Sonic 2 sort of style of difficulty to it, where it's just, you have a limited number of lives, and if you die too many times, you gotta replay the whole game from the beginning, but for the most part, I find that the difficulty design is, you know, very well designed. There's never any point where it feels like, when I die, 90% of the time it feels like my fault, not the game's, you know? Because, you know, the way that they handle everything. I mean, like, part of what makes that work is the health bar. I mean, like, you can take damage from hitting objects and stuff, but you don't take as much damage as if you get shot, so it's just... And the barrel roll mechanic helps you to avoid damage. It's one of those games that's really difficult. If you can't beat it, it's because you're not skilled enough. And that's the way it should be, you know? So, I think there's an alternate pathway over there. I've got to go back for some of the alternate pathways in this game, because like 64, this game has that. But with the SNES game, really enjoyed it. One of the things I really liked about it was that there are actually 3 different pathways you can choose from. They're called levels. Basically how it works is there's like a middle pathway that's the easiest one. Then there's a, there's a pathway that goes off to the left, level 2, that's slightly harder. And then there's a pathway, level 3, that has 1 extra level than the other ones, and is by far the hardest. And so basically when you play Star Fox and SNES, it's kind of like you're getting 3 different games in one. It's possible to play the easiest difficulty and see the ending of the game. So even if you're not really good at the game and you have issues with the limited continues and whatnot, it's still possible to see the final boss and finish the game on the easiest pathway. And if you want to strut your stuff and improve your assault, you can play level 2 and level 3 and see how far you get in there. And, like, I bought the game for my SNES, like, I got a physical copy because I wanted to play it that way, and it's just, I got it for, like, Christmas 2012, and I just played the game and really, really liked it. Before that, I had only really played Star Fox 64 3D, I think, and Star Fox Assault, and Star Fox Command. And I think that was before, I think it was after I played Adventures as well. Like, I think I got Star Fox Adventures in, like, the summer of 2012, right before my senior year of high school, I think. And I played that at the beginning of the school year, I remember that. That game's not very good, by the way. It's mediocre. It's not the worst game of all time, like I used to think it was, but I mean, like, there are people who say that it sucks, that people think it sucks just because they wanted a rail shooter and the game's not a rail shooter. I just think the game... I just think that even when judged on its own merits, just as a game, completely on its own, aside from the fact that it's a Star Fox game, it's just not really that good. I mean, it tries to be a Zelda game, but it doesn't have any of the polish or smart design choices that Ocarina of Time had that pulled everything together. But I'm getting sidetracked. I need to focus my conversation. The original was one of my favorites. Really liked it. Star Fox 2, it was an unreleased game. I played that just after I finished the SNES game. Really liked that one too. It's a lot of fun. And I think it's better than 64 as well, and I really wish that 64 had, taken more elements from it, because as is, 64 just feels like a rehash of the SNES game with maybe slightly better controls, because you got the analog stick, and like they added the charge from Star Fox 2, and it has analog control, so it's maybe a little smoother in that regard, but I don't know, overall it just felt like more of the same that I could already get from Star Fox and SNES. And I wasn't a fan of how they handled the pathways in that game. Can't really comment on how this game does it, because I haven't played enough of it. Maybe it's... From what I've seen so far, it seems like it's a little better. I'll get into that later once we get to the second part. But I'm checking how much time I've got left. Well, this first part's almost over already, but... Yeah, Star Fox 64, it's a good game, but I don't think it's as good as everybody says it is, if I'm going to be totally honest. The pathways, like, you never know what you're supposed to do to get on the pathways, and again, I don't know if this game does that any better. But, and the end game is awful. Like, the final level, if you're trying to go for the real Venom and defeat the real Andross, it's one of the most poorly designed final stages in video games that I've played. I don't know, maybe if I play it again, it'll be better than I remember it, but the last time I played it to record footage for the Whiny Bitch Star Fox Adventures, Star Fox Assault video, I wasn't a huge fan of it, that final stage, and I need a full review to really explain that. Eventually, I will probably do a remake or re-break episode on that in Star Fox 64 3D, but I don't have a 3DS capture. And it's just like all the time people are saying, can you do a remake or re-break on Super Mario 64 DS? It's just like, sure, I'd love to, but I can't record the game. And if I can't record the game, I can't review it, And a lot of people are just like, oh, one thing I should comment on here is that this boss forces you to use target view. Basically what that does is if you hold ZL, I think, it locks on to, like, the main enemy you're supposed to be going after. And then what you do is, while it's locked on, you look down at the gamepad, and then you aim and shoot that way, and the controls are the same, and it's something that took me a while to get used to. Like, it took me, like, maybe until, like, level 4 to really get a handle on it. But, it's essentially how this works, is, and this boss forces you to use it. No other boss in the game, to my recollection, automatically engages target view. I guess they did it because they wanted people to get used to it. But, yeah. Essentially, so, like, you're not going to be seeing a lot of that. It's like, for many of these boss fights, the game, like, brings you into target view. Like, it makes it a lot easier to shoot at some of the smaller weak points in the game if you're in target view. So for, like, bosses, I use that a lot. We're going to be seeing, we're going to be fighting a team of ace pilots later on, who you probably already know about, and I'll be using target view for them. But, yeah. So we finished the first stage. We protected General Pepper in the Cornerian Tower. Now we're going to start our trek towards Venom in Episode 2. So stay tuned for more. This is going to be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday playthrough. And yeah, I'll be getting more into the controls and stuff and my opinions on other Star Fox titles in the next episode. But yeah, this first stage, pretty fun. I was still getting used to the controls here just a little bit. You might have noticed that from me playing. And once again, I would like to stress, this is my very first playthrough of this game. I had no experience with the control scheme prior to this, and I beat that level no problem. So, but there are other control schemes in this game, and we'll be getting into some of those in the next episode. So, yeah, be sure to join me for more. I'll be continuing to comment on some of the other aspects of this title. And yeah, I'm going to be sticking around 20 to 25 minutes for episodes for this playthrough because it feels like a good chunk for a day, and I would like to avoid cutting levels down the middle if I can. But yeah. Until next time, gentles and ladies, men, I'm ExoParadigmGamer, and I will see you guys later.